Hello and welcome to another mixing tutorial. Today I would like to walk you through one of my current productions, and within this production I would like to show you several aspects of it. The first part will be about some technique, how to save CPU power and some other technical aspects. The second part will be the most important part for the mixing, which is the music itself and the arrangement. Then we will dive into mixing. This will not be a comprehensive mixing tutorial, but I will show you some tricks and hacks and techniques I use, and I would like to give you some insight and give you an impression of my thoughts behind. Finally, I will show you what I did on the mix bus. Things that are not included in this tutorial is vocals, because the vocals are not recorded yet. So this production is currently on the way. It's not finished yet. And I will also not go into details for effects, because the effects are not final yet. The current mix I'm doing is a playback for the singer, and of course there is no mastering done yet. Okay, let's start first with some technical things. There is something about RCO guard of Cubase which is quite interesting, and I would like to show it to you. So if you don't know what RCO guard is, I will shortly explain. You can activate it here, and you have got several steps: low, normal and high. And what RCO guard actually does, it evaluates the tracks and does as much pre-processing CPU wise as it can do in order to save you actual peak CPU time. So if you activate this, then Cubase has the possibility to average the CPU time by pre-calculating tracks which are not real-time relevant. And you can see it here. So these are the real-time peaks, and this is the actual CPU load. As you can see, it's already a bit high. Now let's start the track. As you can see, the average load is quite high, but the peak load, which is crucial for overloads, is quite low. So now I would like to show you something interesting. If I switch, wait a moment, to, for example, to the drums, then I get quite a high load. And if I switch to this track, the load sinks significantly. So the reason is that Cubase watches the tracks, and for example, this is a real-time MIDI tracks for the drums. And as soon as you activate a real-time track where you want to play live, then the load goes up, because this instrument has to be processed in real time. But if I switch to, for example, my arrange track, there is no real-time input because it's not connected to any instrument. The CPU load decreases significantly. So that's the trick. If you have got a high CPU load during mixing, you should switch to a track. It could also be an audio track with a deactivated input, where Cubase is not forced to expect real-time input. So this is a track with real-time input. The CPU power rises, and if I switch back to this track where there is no instrument connected, it lowers. There's another technical hack which I used in this track. I'm the owner of UID, and in order to tax the CPU load not too high, I used UID plugins for many tracks, and as you might know, the UAD plugins are processed on a separate DSP hardware, so the CPU load is decreased because it is not calculated within the internal CPU. Right, so the last technical aspect is, in my opinion, very important for mixing. I have always spectrum analyzer activated, and I'm watching this all the time. I think this is quite important in order to kind of recalibrate your ears, and also to know what's going on, not only by listening but also by watching. At least for me, it's a great tool. So this is, for example, important for me in the high frequency area. There should be always a roll off, and you should also watch the very low end in order to recognize maybe some low end problems in a low end rumble. And this is also very important. This is the correlation meter, and this will show you if you've got phase problems. So you should see that the correlation is always in the positive area. If it goes into the negative, then you've got phase problems. Okay, so much for the technical part. Now let's dive into the music. Before we go into all this plugin stuff, I want to talk about the most significant part of the mixing, which is the arrangement. And I always build up an empty MIDI track in order to build up my arrangement. And this is a Christmas song, so we have got a very soft intro in order to get in a Christmas-like mood. And the first verse is about expecting the Christmas evening, and then it starts with a jingle bells where Sandy is actually coming through the chimney. So now you can hear all the bells and the jingle bells, and this indicates that kind of Sandy has arrived. Then the second verse, where all the children are excited about the presents. Then there is a bridge which is leading to the chorus, where all the children dance, and the whole thing gets kind of rocky. Let's listen to this. So this is a soft chorus, then another bridge going into a more rocky guitar-like chorus. Then there is an interlude with the intention to lower the tension and then to build it up again. And in this interlude, I'm also switching to complete different harmonies and instrumentations in order to get variation into the song. So after the refrain, the whole tension drops, and you can hear some kind of synthy trombone choir, which is distributing all these So this is like a trombone choir below the Christmas tree. Then it's going to build up again into the final chorus, where most instruments play. Before the final chorus starts, there's an interlude with a guitar solo in order to raise the tension. And to make the expectation of the final chorus more interesting. And here we are on the final chorus. Okay, so much for the arrangement. Another aspect I want to emphasize is what I call framing. So I've got an intro and an outro, and the intro and the outro use the same melodic theme, and this kind of frames the song. So if we listen to the intro, and then if we step into the outro, just the same theme and the same chords. Okay, so much for the arrangement. Next I would explain something to you which kind of incited the first song idea for me. And it's quite an interesting story. The song started off small piano motifs which my little daughter played, and what's interesting even for me, that out of these very simple melodic motifs a complete song came into being. And if you listen to these motifs, they kind of sound simple, maybe even simplistic, but I don't know why. Despite of their simplicity, they're in some way emotional and great, and they serve the song very well. And as soon as I heard my daughter play these motifs, I kind of heard the arrangement in my head, and this is how this song came into being. So let's listen to the motifs. So this is the first motif. Then a scale, so there is a change between quarter notes and eighth notes, and in the first verse again this simple motif. Then another motif in the bridge. And the same motif in the chorus, but with a strong rhythmical variation. There is the scale again. And the first motif is actually a derived version of this one. That's basically it. These are all motifs which this song is constructed of. So very simple, very reduced, but it has still a great impact for the whole song. The conclusion of this is that you don't always need complicated melodies and motifs and sophisticated chord structures and harmonies. You can build great songs out of very simple ideas. Okay, let's switch to the next aspect. It's the layering of sounds. it's a kind of a mental switch, another paradigm during mixing. In my opinion, you have to distinguish between sounds, tracks, which you want to hear separately. So you have to separate them during mixing in order to make them audible. But in terms of layering, you just think the other way around. If you want to layer sounds, you want to blend them and you want them to appear as one instrument. And then you mix them in order not to distinguish the different sounds, but you mix in a way that they appear as one sound. And this is the case, for example, in the intro. So what you basically hear is a piano, but it's a blended sound. And I'll let you hear what I blended in. So it's a synth horn sound, which kind of emphasizes the little piano melody. And you will only hear that something is happening here in the orchestral part if I switch it off. So let's listen to the blended sound. Now, without the horns. Wait a minute. Now I switch it on during replay and you will hear the difference. As soon as I switch on, sound becomes more warm and intriguing and sweet and whatever. So that's the basic idea of layering. There's also some more layering going on. For example, in the chorus. Let me find it. Where I layered the first chorus the piano sound with the guitar sound. So this is the piano sound in solo. Sorry. Here we are. So the chords of the guitar layer with the piano, but the rhythmical element is not layered. And this again is layered with the synth part, which is also playing in a rhythmical way. So the guitars form the rhythmical layer with the synth, and the steady chords of the guitar part form a layer with the piano. And this is the way I think if I mix, I think in two directions. I want to let the listener hear the rhythmical parts separated from the steady chords, but I also want that the steady chords of the guitar blend with the piano. So this is two ways of thinking, blending sounds and separating sounds. And this is the way I think if I mix instruments which kind of play in the same register. Okay, this is about layering and separation. Another arrangement hack is the intensity of the drums. So these are, for example, the intro drums. Going to solo them. And these are the drums for the chorus. So, big difference in sound, but the basic rhythm is quite the same. And this is not about mixing. I used different instruments. For the softer drum parts, I did not use a kick drum, but a low tom as a substitution for the kick. And I used also this alternative snare sound, this sidekick sound, instead of a full snare. And in the chorus part, I of course used the full-blown kick and the full-blown snare. So this is how we make drums softer arrangement-wise and not by mixing. And this, I again want to emphasize, is very important for the build-up for the song. Right, next aspect. This is going to be a rocky Christmas song, and it's very important that your instrumentation or orchestration supports the theme and also the lyrics. It's about Christmas and presents and joy and expectations. This means, of course, we need jingle bells. We need also orchestral bells like these, for example, in order to emphasize that this is about Christmas and not nothing else. You can also hear in the bridge so these sounds are all reminding us of Christmas. This is the aspect of how instruments should support this theme and the lyrics and the overall feel of the song. Now the next aspect is about variation in the arrangement. Let's look at the first chorus. There you can see the piano is playing, the synth is playing, and the acoustic guitar is playing, and very softly a lead guitar is playing. So the main sound is transported by this rhythmical synth and the piano. All other instruments here are just supportive. In this case, the synth 3, which sounds like this, and the acoustic guitar. So these are the supportive instruments, and these are the main instruments of the first chorus. My idea was then to bring in rock guitars in the next chorus, and as you can see here, I muted the piano because I realized that the piano and the rock guitars were competing against each other, and it was not clear which is now the main instrument. Is it the guitars or is it the piano? And as a listener, I got confused. So my logical conclusion was to simply mute them off, and then everything was clear. And in the second chorus, now the distorted guitar is the lead instrument rather than the piano and the synth. Now the synths only have a supportive role, and also the acoustic guitar is not necessary anymore because it's just supportive. And if I switch off in the second chorus the supportive instruments, it's still there. And these instruments have now become just fillers for the main instrument, which is the rock guitar. It's a kind of ornament. And this is just filling up the sound. And just the same for the last and the most important chorus, where I added back the acoustic guitar, but it's not the main instrument. It's just providing some shimmer in the high end in order to make the last chorus more excited. This is still the most important instrument in the chorus. Okay, this was now about variation and about the decision, the clear decision, which is the most important instrument in my different parts. Right, next aspect. Yeah, very important, transitions. With transitions I mean the glue between the different parts. So if you switch from one part, which is the verse 1, into the Jingle Bells part, there should be a clear build up and a logical transition into this new part. Let's listen what happens. Okay, maybe a bit longer. Okay, now the question is, how is the transition happening? It's actually driven by the acoustic guitar, which is performing a build-up, and then the entry into the Jingle Bells part is driven by the strummed chord and the start of the Jingle Bells. Let's listen only to the guitar. Now it's building up and release by the strum. Now the Jingle Bells take over. Again. Right. Maybe in just another transition. Yeah, maybe from the bridge into the second chorus. Let's listen. There was a small hiccup. I do it again. Okay, which instruments are now driving the transitions? It's the synth 1. Listen. So, this harmonies are now driving into the next part. And the entry into the second chorus is also driven by the tom pattern, and the first bar is driven by the cymbal. Let's listen to the drums in solo, so that you can hear how the drums support this transition. As you can see, there is a clear message from the drums that the chorus is now starting. Maybe a third one. There is also a build-up driven by the drums here. And this transition is also driven by the synth and again the drums. Now let's listen to these driving instruments. Listen to the drums. Now the snare comes in and drives. So that's how the transition is built in this case. Okay, transitions, very important. Right. The next arrangement trick is using percussion, and especially high-tuned percussion like shakers or tambourines are kind of driving the rhythm, and they're giving the important parts more excitement. Just listen if I take out, for example, the tambourine. And the jingle bells. So I bring in the tambourine. And the jingle bells. Now you can hear that the chorus is becoming way more interesting and excited. Right. Next arrangement tricks is very old composition techniques. It's countermelodies. Let's go into maybe the first chorus. I'm switching on the guide vocals, so you can hear both melodies. Okay, so this is the main melody, obviously. Now I switch on the counter melody, which is played by the lead guitar. Now, if I switch on the harmony instruments, you can hear how it blends in nicely. So now I'm going to solo this synth 1 and the lead guitar, and then you can hear that the upper harmony key, the upper harmony tone of the synth 1 also supports the counter melody of the lead guitar. Now the synth is solo, and you can see the upper tones are the same as the counter melody in the lead guitar. Listen. And this is the lead guitar. So now you have the counter melody in connection with the harmonies playing nicely together and kind of against the main melody, which creates an interesting listening experience. The same happens in the interlude. Wait a moment. No, sorry, in the bridge, I think. Ah, yes, here. Where counter melodies build up with scales. Sorry, wrong part. Here we are. Now the scale. So, and during this motif, the piano continues to play the scale. And this is now serving as a counter melody. Let's solo it. That's the main melody versus the counter melody. Right. Okay. I think the concept is now clear. And now one final thing about arrangement. It's always a good thing to make the last chorus the most excited one, and therefore my last chorus uses nearly all instruments all together. So it's full-blown guitars, it's the acoustic guitar, it's both synths. The only thing which I left out is the piano, because it competes with the rock guitars, but I did some twist. In the second part of the chorus I started the piano again, but in the upper register, and then it does not compete with the rock guitars and enhances the chorus in a nice way. Let's listen to this. First without the piano part in the higher registers. Now with the piano part. Listen, that's happening on the piano. This piano part is only happening in the last refrain, and also the acoustic guitars together with the rock guitars are only happening in the last chorus in order to get the most excitement out of it. Right, so I think we are done now with the music and arrangement part, and now we are walking a bit through the mix, and I will show you some techniques and hacks I used in order to make it sound nice. Let's start with the drum overheads. As you can hear, there are lots of cymbals happening, and I had a problem with the cymbals. They sounded too harsh, and therefore I pulled them down at 6.5K. I show you what happens if I push it up. Switch it off. Whip. Okay, it's about a minus 6 dB, and it solved the problem. Okay, next one is the kick, and I always like my kicks punchy, even in Christmas songs, and I used the deft compressor from Vexenko in order to add some punch to the kick, using, well, very sophisticated, the punch parameter. Let's listen to it with and without. This is without. With. So there is compression happening, and I don't know what the punch parameter is actually doing, but I guess it kind of enhances the transient. I also pulled up the attack in order to let the transient through, and in order to push it even more. So the equalization of the kick is nothing fancy. So I just leave it as it is. Yes, a very important aspect of my drums is I route all my drums into a drum bus, which you can see here. And from the very beginning of the mix, I put this compressor on the drum bus, which I like very much. I use it nearly for all of my drums because it sounds great. It's a kind of instant gratification plugin. It's the UAD Neve 36309 compressor. I just put it on and everything is fine. And I also mix the drums into it. Right. Now for the bass guitar. The bass guitar is amplified by a virtual amp. It was a recommendation in the internet to use a Fender, and it worked out quite well. But most important, I would like to show you this. You will find this pull-tech trick also in other tutorials, and it really works fine because it does boosting and attenuation. And the trick is to boost quite low on the bass and then to attenuate. And the pull-tech equalizer is built in a way that the attenuation takes place in higher frequencies than the boosting, and it gives this nice curve which then looks like this, and it gives the bass a nice bottom end without hooting frequencies about at 100 to 200 Hertz, which are attenuated here. And I also boost the higher frequencies of the bass in order to make it also audible on smaller speaker systems at about 5K. Right. Yes, and the bass is also compressed with the LA2A, and I deliberately did not use the new UAD model of the LA2A, but the old one, because I didn't want to add too much analog mojo. So this is a equalizer equipped with transformers and tubes, and if I added the new version of the LA2A, then for my personal taste it would be just too much transformer and tube sound, so I took the older version, which does not an emulation or not such an analogish emulation of these circuits than the newer one. So I got the mojo from here, and then I don't need it here. That was the reason why I chose the older version. Right. Now, a small glimpse into my compression. They are the two pianos. Let me see where they are playing. So they are never playing except here at the same time, and they also serve different purposes. So the piano 1 is a more clear piano. I also wanted more dynamics from this piano. And it's also driving the chorus. So, and in this compression setting, I just wanted to tame the peaks using a relatively high ratio and a not too low threshold, fast attack, fast release. And the idea was mainly to keep the dynamic of the piano, just to keep it a bit consistent by peak compression. Now, the other piano is just kind of the other way around. There I used a compressor, the Klanghelm Muse, with which provides a lot of mojo to keep the piano smooth and consistent. So I'm using fast attack and moderate release, which is in this case recovery. And the idea was not to tame the peaks, but to keep the level of the piano consistent, and to give it, using this drive, kind of sweet and smooth saturation. And then it sounds like this. In a moment. There is the piano too. Maybe this is a better part. Without. I'm not sure if you can hear this because it's subtle, so the piano gets more consistent, more smooth, and also gets more warmth and more width. Right, so much for the different compression approaches as far as the pianos are concerned. Okay, now for the synth, we don't have to listen to this. I just beefed it up a bit in order to make it more cut through the mix. That's all. Nothing fancy, nothing special. What have we got? Ah, yes. The rock guitars, the distorted guitars. Quite interesting. Maybe I should make them visible. So. They are both running through a virtual amp. In this case, the Brainworks BX Rock Rack, which is great. But quite often I experience, despite of the greatness of the amp simulation, that they still sound kind of artificial and harsh and digital. And there is a great way in order to improve this situation. After the guitar amp, I very often use a saturator, mostly tape saturation. By the way, this is also a hack provided by Craig Copeland from the Recording Revolution. And in my case, I used the decapitator and the tape mode, which is, I think, emulating an Ampex, in order to give the guitar a more round sound. Let's switch off the Neve emulation in order to give you an impression of how different it sounds. In a moment. Okay, and that's the chorus. Now let's solo the guitar and show you what's happening here. So this is just the guitars with the BX Rock Rack. So there's nothing to blame about, but in my opinion, in the higher frequencies, there's just an edge which I quite don't like, and this edge is now moderated kind of by the decapitator. So this is just driven a bit, and I also darkened the tone a bit in order to make it more warm and more, well, analogish, if you like. Okay. Now let's bring in the Neve 1033 emulation by Waves, which is, by the way, great. And I put it in mainly for tone. I did some minor adjustments at the highs, the mids and the lows. And now let's listen to the difference. Now this EQ quite opens the sound. It also makes it kind of more stereo, and I achieved it by putting off some of the lows, enhancing the mids a bit, and also enhancing the highs. Now let's listen by switching on and off the complete chain. This is just the amp simulation. Now with the plugins, with the mojo. Without. And with. Now in connection with the mix. If I switch off these plugins now, the guitar, in my opinion, gets quite obtrusive, and if I switch them on, they embed nicely into the mix. All right. So far for mixing. And now a final tip which I cannot show you in the Cubase. About 30 to 40% I listen to my mix in mono using an Auratone clone speaker with a coaxial speaker. So this is a big recommendation. Listen to your mix on a mono speaker and don't use a high-end, high-fee speaker, but use an Auratone clone. In my case, I show you the picture. I use Aventone, which is great. Okay, we are nearly done now. The last thing I wanted to show to you is what I did on the mix bus. And don't confuse it with mastering. So what I'm doing on the mix bus is not mastering. The first thing, which I nearly always do, is I put on the tape simulation, in this case the virtual tape machine from the Slate, which is great, in order to give the whole mix more width and in order to kind of smoothen the transient and make the whole mix smoother and wider, and don't know what happens here. It's just magic. It's I just put it on, it sounds nice, and I put it on from the very first step of mixing and mix into the tape. And then in the last third of my mixing process I realized that I wanted a bit more mojo, and I kind of discovered the very old version of the LA2A, which is named LA2. I think it's from the 50s and all tubes and stuff and old and dusty, and it adds just the right mojo for the song, in my opinion. Makes it also a bit smoother and wider and some other magic I cannot explain. Okay, let's listen to the difference. I switched them both off. Should especially listen to the snare and the low end, the bass and the kick drum, in order to hear the difference of the tape. Especially the snare now kind of pops out of the mix just by switching on this plugin. now for the mojo part. It's, as I told you, mainly for sound, and there's a very smooth compression also going on in order to get some gluing effect on the mix. As you can see, I'm just kissing the needle a bit. Without. With. Without. With. All right. I think we are complete now. I hope you liked the tutorial, and I also hope that my ideas and my reasoning behind what I'm doing is helpful for you. And maybe I will give you an update if the song is finished with vocals and mastering. So long, goodbye.